Welcome back, everyone, to episode 17 of Show and Tell. This is just my small adventure to highlight the creators and contributors to the Magic the Gathering community. Tonight, West Coast people, we're out a little late this evening. I'm super excited to be joined by my friend, Commander player, photographer, Bird of Paradise, she who melds Brisela, Katie Karlov. Katie, thank you so much for joining me this evening. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. So that Brisela, you're gonna have to tell that story later. By the way, that's kind of it's become a legends and myth. The one who melded Brisela in a game. So. Yeah, so Katie, you are a Magic player, streamer, all sorts of good stuff. So my silly joke is let's start at the beginning. So let's talk about your history with Magic. When did you start playing Magic, and what kind of got you into the game?
So I got into Magic around 2010, 2011. I'm kind of unsure of the year. But we used to go. We were living in SoCal, and we went to Frank and Sons all the time, which is in LA. And
Frank's, love it.
Yes, one of our favorite spots. And we always saw all the Magic booths there that had Magic cards. And so we were like, let's get into something. And my husband, who was at the time my boyfriend, was like, let's get into Magic because the art on the cards is so cool. And I've always been interested. And so, we were like, yeah, let's do it. So we all bought a little bundle, where it comes with is it 12 packs, something like that?
Was it they still did a fat packs? The fat packs?
Yeah, it was a fat pack.
Yeah.
So
cool.
we each bought a fat pack, came home. It was with our friends as well, and we all decided we were going to play, and we watched videos on how to play and stuff like that. We were playing all 5 of us in one group, against each other, and it took forever, and it was really messy. And we played like that for a while, and then our friends kind of dropped out of it. We kind of dropped out of it. Every now and then we'd pull out our 60-card decks that we had built and, play around with them a little bit. And then in 2020, we decided, hey, we need something to do, so why don't we play Magic again? And then we learned Commander, and then that was it for us.
That's funny. Your story, I started playing a lot earlier than you, but it sounds a lot like how my friends and I used to play, especially in college. And in kind of an era pre-Commander, it was just we'd have our decks, and it would be whoever wanted to play, and it was just a giant free-for-all. And it's 4, 5, 6 players, and it's good luck, figuring out, just doing whatever. And wild times. It was the Wild West of playing. So that's funny. If you haven't heard of Frank and Sons, if you're ever in Southern California, Frank and Sons is the mecca of all things collectible cards, toys, games. I've been going there since I was 7. It's definitely changed over the years. It's moved a few times. I haven't actually been. It's moved since I've last been there. I think it's in another new location, but it's you can definitely see
a couple blocks down, right?
Yeah. And they definitely had expanded their card space, the Magic. I think the Magic card space especially, because I used to go back there and buy Star Wars customizable card game cards back in elementary and junior high. But Magic, and I think the Yu-Gi-Oh actually, and probably Pokemon, really kind of pushed that collectible card space there. So, but it's awesome.
The card area is huge now.
Yeah,
where it used
to
just
tables,
be one little area. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of tables that you can come to sit and play, which is super cool. But if you're just into toys and collectibles, I haven't been a while, but there used to be one booth that was all just McDonald's toys, from just decades and all kinds of cool stuff. So
Beanie Baby booths,
Beanie Babies,
stuff.
Beanie Baby booths, gosh, I'm having a hit of nostalgia right now just thinking about. I used to go so much. My dad, it was one of those things I used to go to. My dad a lot would take me. So I'm oh yeah, the father-son bonding mode was over our love of cheap toys and crap. So anyways, so that's cool. For instance, is great. So you found it. So then, came back in around 2020. We can intuit as to what was the inspiration for finding something to do. A lot of us were stuck inside. So when you kind of came back, were you just playing and then you found Commander and you're like, oh yeah, this is how I want to play. This is the format that kind of speaks to me?
Yeah, so back in the day, we had bought a Commander deck because we didn't know what it was, but somebody at a booth was like, at Frank & Sons was like, oh, you guys should play Commander if it's the 4 of you. Yeah. And so we bought, I don't know why we thought this was the idea. I think we were thinking we were playing Arch Enemy, but we bought one Commander deck. And we bought, it was like the Naya one from 2012, I think. I can't even remember who the commander was. It was some Naya commander, and it was where they were doing the jumbo cards still, and it was like a whole thing. Mm-hmm. So we bought one of those, and then we just could not figure out the rules, and so we just sat in our cabinet for a long time. And then I had reconnected with an old friend who had also moved, because I moved up to Seattle in 2020 as well. So we had reconnected with an old friend of mine that lived in Seattle that also played Magic, and they were like, we play Commander. We only play Commander. And we were like, okay, well, we've never played Commander, but we're down to learn. We know the basic rules of Magic. And we played, they brought 4 decks along with them, so we each picked one and played it, and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. This was so fun. And so the next day I sat down with all of my legendary creatures, and I was like, are these ones cool? And one of them was Coma, Cosmos Serpent. And they were like, yeah, that one's really cool. You should definitely build that one.
It's kind of become, I feel like Coma's kind of become your signature deck in a lot of ways. That kind of people associate Coma with you a lot of times. Is that fair to say?
I think so, yeah. It's one of my favorites. I'm like a green player, so playing any deck with green in it is really going to be my speed. And Coma was truly my first commander that I ever built, so it has like a soft spot in my heart. One of my favorite decks, yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. I think, I talk about this a lot with my experience playing Magic. I started playing on the sidewalks of my junior high back in the Urza block, so like 1998, kind of dating myself now. But when I kind of found Commander, when a lot of Magic players, you come and go from the game just because it's been around so long. But when I came back, when Dominaria, the original Dominaria came out, that's when I discovered Commander, and I was like, oh, this is the format I've been looking for. Because I dinked around with Standard and Modern, but the idea of like using cards from pretty much the entire history of the game. And the building restrictions of the commander, but the 100 I think the singleton format really is what I think is it was pretty cool too, because it really kind of allows for more flexibility in designing your decks. Yeah. And it's just a very elegant way to play. It's just with the 4 people, and there's a big emphasis obviously on the social aspect, the gathering, as we like to emphasize. But it's just fun. It's a fun format. So. I can definitely relate to you in a lot of how like we've come to the same point in our Magic playing careers and what we're looking to get out of the game. So you come back, you start playing Commander, you build this fearsome Coma deck, and then it looks like you start streaming. You tend to stream. I don't know if it's always Monday nights. I know I've been on I think it's a Monday. Karlov's Command.
Wednesdays usually.
Wednesdays.
Yeah.
There you go. Wednesdays. It's been a long week for me. Wednesdays. That is correct. So let's talk a little bit about streaming. What got you interested in streaming, and then like even just then, because like streaming is one thing, like going on and like let's just play arena for people, or let's play whatever. But then hosting your own kind of gameplay kind of stream is a whole other beast, I would say. So what was the inspiration that kind of got you into streaming, and then what kind of prompted you to then kind of start organizing your own gameplay stream?
Yeah. So gosh. I had started watching because I kind of fell in love with Commander. So I was like, I want to know more about it. I want to watch other people play it. So I started watching, things like game nights and some other, YouTube shows that were on at the time. And I was like, oh, okay, like this is really fun. Like you get to meet new people and like play with decks you wouldn't normally get to play with. And like, it's not, it feels light and fresh and all that. So I I really wanted to get into streaming, but I didn't really know anybody. And the thing about Commander is you kind of have to know some people.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there that I play Commander. I started a Twitter that was just for Magic. I basically created a whole, like, I don't want to say persona because I'm still myself at all times, but I just basically made a space for myself and said, hey, I'm here to do this. And I started just streaming Arena. I would play Historic Brawl, so I was like, people kind of knew I was here to play Commander, that kind of stuff. And then actually Bobby Christine had messaged me and was like, do you want to be on my stream? And cool. I was like starstruck, like the Bobby Christine. Like it's kind of funny because when you join Twitter and you don't have any followers and you're not following anybody, and you start, like, it asks you, like, do you want to sync your contacts? Do you want to, like certain topics of conversation? And so really all I put in there was Magic and Dungeons and Dragons. Those were, like, the two things I was like, I'm interested in these two things. And it recommended people for me to follow. And one of those people was Bobby Christine. And so
that's cool.
I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I saw that she'd been playing since Lorwyn. Like, it was, like, a whole thing. I was like, oh my God, like, she's so cool. She's like, I'm gonna follow her, like, duh.
Yeah.
And then she DM'd me, like, pretty recently after I had joined Twitter, which I know for her was kind of a gamble because I had a new Twitter account. I had no followers. Like, I was nobody. I still am nobody, just for the record. I want to make sure that's clear. But
you're somebody to me, Katie. You're.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're a real one, as I like to say.
Oh. So yeah, anyway, she invited me on her show and I finally got to play Commander with people. I was playing Kalia, which was a newer deck for me. I had kind of just been playing around with it. And I did really well and, Bobby and I kind of clicked and then I kind of became, kind of built up a friendship over time over the last year and a half. Gosh, longer now, almost 2 years. So it just kind of went from there. And then I finally was like, okay, I think I have the confidence to, like, invite people up to be on my stream. I'm going to try it out every now and then I'll make it a weekly thing. And it just kind of went from there. I had a lot of people that were excited to play. And that's realistically, like, where a lot of the drive comes from is, like, the cool thing about the people in the Magic community is they want to play Magic. So... Yeah.
100%.
It wasn't like hard to book people except for like normal scheduling conflicts. Like I'm already busy that night or whatever. But like generally there's like a sea of people that want to play. And I was eager to play with new people and new decks and, kind of get more experience in Magic. So at the beginning it was really hard and really stressful. And I was like, booking people 3 weeks in advance and like doing all this stuff. And now I've kind of slowed down a little bit. I've been actually really busy with my job. So I haven't been as consistent, but when I do have it, I'm getting these really fun pods together that I'm excited to play with. And I think my audience is excited to see play. So.
For sure. Yeah. I think, for a lot of factors, obviously people like playing Magic, like Magic players want to play Magic and, for the most part, getting people on, like, I think the community itself, like, we sculpt a community that we want to kind of be a part of. And I think a lot of times people who you have shared interests with, it makes it kind of easier when you're kind of creating these sort of spaces. And to your point, Bobby, I've had Bobby on a few episodes ago and she's fantastic. But I remember when I met her and I met you at Magic 30 in Vegas. Yeah. And as an even more insignificant person in the Magic world, I had just having you follow me on Twitter or her follow, and then kind of seeing you at Magic, like, hey, like we follow each other on Twitter, like just kind of saying hi, and like I was giving out Fibble Thip Pims or other, and just like super cool, like super late, I guess, like people being so excited, like, oh yeah, hey, like it's cool, it's like cool to see you in person, like this is wild, like you kind of talk to someone in this digital space and. Then you get to see them physically, like, oh, like, yeah, you are a person, like, this is weird, but this is pretty cool. So, I think that's part of the joy of the game is just kind of bringing people together. And I know it's kind of a cliche, but the gathering does tend to be the best part of the game, be it in person or online or through streaming. So, I know, like, when you had me on your stream a few weeks ago, and I was like, this is so freaking cool. I was having so much fun, especially it's like I don't get to play Commander pretty much at all because I don't really have a play group around me. So like anytime I can kind of like jump on somewhere, I'm like, heck yes, this is awesome. Like I just want to play some Magic. That's cool. And if I think it's Wednesdays. Definitely check out Katie's stream once you kind of. I don't know. Do you try to do it every Wednesday, every other Wednesday? I know, like you said, recently you've been kind of busy with life. Do you try to relatively have maintain a relatively consistent schedule? Or I know it gets tough when you kind of get older and you have when you don't contribute, your job isn't a full-time creator. Like you have a day job. Like I can relate to that. Maintaining those consistent schedules gets kind of difficult, right? Yeah,
totally. I also have a young child too. He's 4. So just balancing all of that sometimes gets a little difficult. But yeah, I usually was streaming every other week. I'm sorry, every week. I'm moving towards an every other week system. It's just a little bit easier for me to balance everything that I have going on, but I don't totally want to walk away from streaming because I do love doing it. And I do love just also playing with other people in the community too. So I will occasionally like jump onto somebody else's stream. Typically you'll see me on Bobby's stream quite a bit, but yeah, I think trying to get into a balance of every other week would be ideal for me right now. Yeah,
definitely. So I'm always curious for people, when you made the jump to hosting your own streams, what was the biggest difficulty, or like what, if you have advice for someone who maybe is streaming but is thinking about trying to host their own kind of gameplay stream, like what did you find, or what do you wish you had known beforehand? Any insights there?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I struggled with in the beginning was just like my nerves. I wanted to make sure everything was right. I wanted to make sure nothing went wrong. And I kind of realized that stuff's going to happen. I feel like technology, it's like as much as we rely on it, it's not reliable.
Yeah.
I have like a gaming PC. It's a laptop, but I still have like a nice laptop, and still I have times, like I think 2 weeks ago I had a stream where none of my USB ports wanted to work, like none of them. So I was like, my camera was working, my microphone was working, that were plugged directly into my PC, but my Stream Deck doesn't work. Actually, no, my microphone wasn't working. It was my Stream Deck wasn't working, my microphone wasn't working, and my keyboard wasn't working. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I think like rolling with the punches in the beginning, it's never going to be easy. And I think like stuff goes wrong for me still all the time. I have so many VODs on my Twitch channel that have no audio because for whatever reason, Twitch didn't record the audio, and I still don't understand why. And then I think the other thing is like when you're building out a game with people, you're going to play a 4-player game. You're going to probably pay for an hour to 2 hours. I think the one thing that I didn't necessarily struggle with this, but it was very apparent to me early on that it was something I had to think about, was I don't want to just be blindly booking people like, hey you, hey you, hey you. I want 3 people to join me that I think they're going to vibe together as well. It's about the whole group. Yeah. So it's not to say anybody is lesser or better or whatever. It's more of just like, I know these people well enough to know that they're going to get along with these other people over here. And so we're just going to bring it all together. And I think that thoughtfulness translates to the audience that are watching. I think people get excited about, oh my God, these 3 people are on Katie's stream. Like, that's so cool. And then they want to come out and say hi and see those people. They're excited to see those people. Yeah.
Oh, I spy a dog. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably a very good point, is when it's your stream, part of your job is kind of cultivating the experience. Mm-hmm. So, because you can invite people on willy-nilly, but having an idea of like the type of person they are and how to kind of create a vibe, I think is kind of an underrated aspect. And as someone, again, who's been on your stream, I can speak to you. Like, I know when we started, I was pretty nervous because even before I do this show, I was like, I'm always nervous when I start this thing because I have to look at the whatever. But once you kind of get going, the nervous part, I think for a lot of people, once you kind of get going, you tend to loosen out because you start, you kind of get into a groove. And yeah, technology is crazy. Like, stuff's going to happen. So as long as you kind of roll with the punches, I joke that when I think episode 2 of this show, I had Veggie Wagon on, and the video, my laptop I think I was using OBS, and just like the video just didn't work. It just was super laggy. So the audio was fine. So I was just like, well, let's just roll with it. And I think the whole video version of the show is it's like 5 screenshots. So every like 10 minutes, it just changes from like, our faces going like, and then but the audio's there. So like you're getting the gist of it anyways. And that's just part of, working with especially computers. It's just,
yeah,
pivoting, right? Just stick and move and keep going forward and figuring it out because, it's a lot of times it's out of your control. You're not gonna, you can't spend 2 hours troubleshooting why your USB driver suddenly vanished or something, or like what's going on there, because it's just it's not worth your time. So being able to just, like you said, roll off the punches, I think is a very important skill to learn in this sort of space.
Totally.
Gosh, I was gonna ask something and forgot, so I'm just gonna pivot, like we just talked about. You kind of brought up, Bobby Christine and some of your other guests, but I think you and her both are part of a group called Birds of Paradise, which is kind of a magic. I don't know if they call it a collective. I don't want to say like organization. It's kind of a little more amorphous than a group organization per se. But I was wondering if you just maybe wanted to speak on that a little bit. What was your involvement? What is your involvement, and kind of like what you guys kind of do and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so the Birds of Paradise started as an idea to really just, we wanted to go to events and stuff. We knew we all wanted to go together, and so the thought was, if we make a group, and have a group goal and mission statement, that would be a good way to like be able to attend events, and then we could also like do good for the community. Part of that, which, we could talk about, is, we wanted to do charity work for Trans Lifeline, and also I think another important piece of that was just, making wherever our group was at a convention a safe space for anybody who wants to come join us. So, it really started off with just kind of like an idea of like, we should make a group of us, and, that would be so fun. And then the naming was like really the first thing. We were playing around with a lot of different silly names. And then we landed on Birds of Paradise. I think I woke up in the middle of the night and I texted Bobby and I was like, Birds of Paradise, that's the name. That's it. So yeah, I think after that it was like golden. Like we were like, okay, we're gonna try to become this. And so generally how we describe ourselves is a coalition of creators with the goal to create a safe space in the magic community for people from all walks of life, and also to give back to the community by charitable donation, and really just promoting those in the community who are I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the word right now, but basically, people that are underrepresented or anything like that. So we really wanted to just give back to the community, and also show that we were supportive of others in the community, as well as making it a place where people that maybe feel like they're not a part of the community feel like there's a place for them to go to feel like they're a part of the community. So that was kind of the spawn of all of that. And then we went to Command Fest Bellevue and raised a bunch of money for Trans Lifeline, and now we're talking about doing that again for Command Fest Seattle. That's a little spoiler alert, but
spoilers.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I like to talk a lot about community and community building on the show. That's kind of one of my focuses is I always say, like, we can build a better community. Like, we can shape and create the community that we deserve. And people throw around safe space as some sort of insult, but like, safe spaces are important. There are a lot of people especially in gaming communities and gaming spaces, or even nerds, nerdy kind of spaces that find themselves on the outside looking in. There tends to be a lot of unnecessary gatekeeping around, and it's not necessary. These games, Magic's for everybody, and everyone should feel safe and comfortable when they're in, at something like a Command Fest, or even just, on Twitter, or, going to a convention, or even just their local game store. There should never be a sense of, feeling out of place or unsafe or worried about what someone might say about them. So seeing, that's, I've seen as, your group, I think I actually saw a lot, first introduced most of your group at Magic 30. My first experience was, even as someone who's just, sort of a white guy, super friendly, super engaging, like you're all super nice. And like, those are the kind of groups that I think there need to be recognized more for the work they do. So, it's cool seeing the work you guys did. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I've had Bobby on, and you guys are all fantastic, wonderful people. I think you are the kind of examples of what a community member should look like. So, I just wanted to kind of highlight that the work you've done, and just check them out on. I think do you have is there a specific Twitter? I think for the Birds of Paradise. I think it might. I was.
It's Birds MTG.
Birds MTG.
Birds MTG is our BOP, Birds of Paradise
BOP.
Twitter.
Yeah. So check them out. And again, kind of like Kay said, if you're ever at an event and you're ever feeling kind of unsure or whatever, seek one of them out, because they'll look out for you, which is good. I mean, I think I think that's important. So it's definitely good.
We'll make sure we tweet out on our Birds of Paradise Twitter too which events we'll be at and stuff, because sometimes it's like, I think a lot of the girls went to Magic Philly. I was not able to go, so I think if you're at one of those events, like, we'll be sure to tweet out who is at what event, and you could always try to find us if you're in need of something, or whatever. We're always happy to provide help.
Definitely. So that is wonderful. So speaking of events, there's a few things. So two things really. One, you, in my opinion, you hold one of the legendary stories from the Brisela story. Can you please tell me the Brisela melding story? Set the scene, how you end up on a chair, all that kind of good stuff. Like for the audience who may not know the full mythology of Katie Karlov, the melder.
Yeah. Oh God. So I don't have it anymore. I had a Kalia deck. I recently parted ways with it. So I had Kalia, and of course in Kalia the whole thing is you're cheating out angels and stuff, and so very expertly I threw I forget which one it is. I always get them mixed up, but I threw one of the angels in my graveyard and then kept the other one in my hand. And, everybody knew what I was going to do. They saw the angel in the graveyard and they're like, oh shit, she's going to meld them. Popped out the other angel, and then there we go at my end step, Brisela comes to life. And this is at Lobbycon, which is just at Magic Summit, just in the lobby of a hotel. After the event, it was probably midnight at this point, and everyone's just having a good time hanging out. And I made some joke. I was like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna meld. And I made like a whole big deal because I'm too much sometimes. And then of course everybody in my pod, like, they saw me, they did it, they were like, yeah, and they like clapped. And then they were like, somebody, I think it was Lauren, MTG Hot Dog, was standing nearby, and he was like, speech. So because like, when someone eggs me on, I can't back down. So I stood up on my chair. Everybody in the lobby was like, what's going on? They saw me holding up Brisela, and then the clapping kind of started happening. It's just one of those moments that I didn't plan on it being this big fanfare anything. I was mostly just being silly, but it kind of became this thing, and unwittingly called myself the Elder Melder.
The Elder Melder. That's a good name.
Yeah, and it just became one of those things that like some people were there for it and they talk about it, and it's just like a little silly thing that goes around the internet. But it was it's super fun. I actually, after I got back from MTG Summit, I looked at all the cards that had meld, and I was like, can I make a commander deck that's all meld? And you can. It's not a lot of melding cards. There's only like 12 cards that meld in all of Magic. So it's not like a big, but it's one of those things that I sit on. Like I have it like off to the side in Moxfield, and I'm like, one day, like they just need to come out with like maybe 2 or 3 more meld cards, and then I can make this a thing. But yeah, it was just like one of my favorite things about Magic is like big stompy flashy things that you can do. So melding into a giant Eldrazi, I just thought was super fun, and so I was like, well, of course I'm gonna have this in here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have an Urza deck I've been thinking around to try to make a Urza Planeswalker meld thing kind of happen, but like many decks I start, it's in a box with about 7 other halfway started decks. So one of these days it'll happen. There's actually a pretty I'm going to call it famous photo of you standing presenting the meld. Can I put it up right? Can I
sure,
show you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I will, and it'll probably pop up there. But yeah, and then that's it's funny. So for the uninitiated, which Lobbycon tends to be the unofficial post. I call it trade show, convention meeting space for a lot of players, where someone picks a hotel and they just take over the lobby and just jam games throughout the night. So and I mean those are the kind of stories you hear and you think like, yeah, this is I'm amongst my people. Like these are the people I want to know and be associated with, because that's one of the stories that's going to live. Anytime really someone or kind of tangentially related to you is going to see a Brisela, like, oh, did you hear about the time Katie melded at Lobbycon and like stood on the chair and everyone clapped and someone popped the bottle. The legend's just going to grow over time, which is pretty hilarious. So that's a great story. That's too funny. So, in addition to your Brisela story, you're kind of legendary at conventions for your karaokeing abilities.
Oh, yes.
You tend to have, I think someone put it, the voice of an angel, a rock angel. So,
who said that?
I don't know, veggie. I made it up. I just So, but I mean, you do kind of your reputation just kind of precedes you when it comes to your singing. And as a bassist myself, I spy a bass in the background because I know you actually are a fellow bassist, and I know your husband plays in a band. Shout out to John.
Several.
Your husband has the coolest Twitter name, by the way, Necronomicon John. Like that's such a cool name. I was like, dang, that's a cool name, man. Like husband's an awesome guy. Tell him I said hi, by the way. Tell him, yeah, Drew.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to talk a little music with you a little bit. So, as someone who can't sing but wishes they could, but does play bass, so how long have you been into music? Because you've probably been in a few bands, I'm assuming, or like what's talk to me about your musical background. Let's talk shop for a little bit. Like when did you start getting like into playing and all that kind of good stuff?
I've always been a singer ever since I was little. My mom used to always joke that I was singing before I could really talk. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of always part of my like. I don't want to say identity, but it was just one of the things I always was like doing and good at and, had fun doing. In elementary school, I started in band. So I played the flute, and then junior high, I played the flute in junior high, and then I learned bass clarinet. So then I played bass clarinet and flute and then clarinet all through high school. So I was in like the like top band or whatever, mostly because I could play bass clarinet, and it's hard to find somebody who can like play some of those more unique instruments. Okay. So I was also in choir for a little bit in high school. I did a little bit of choir in college as well, and I sang professionally with our college choir. And karaoke has always been something I've just loved to do. I used to always get made fun of. Like, my mom actually would always make fun of me, like, why are you doing impressions of these artists? Like, you should sing in your own voice. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. Okay.
That's fun. I mean, that's part of the. I mean, like that's part of like the fun of being a musician, or right? It's like being able to imitate other voices is like that's kind of part of the that's okay.
Well, and I think by doing impressions of singers too, you learn a lot of technique and like you branch out of like what you're vocally capable of doing, and you're trying to do something else, and that's how you build muscle. And so, I always thought it was kind of weird, and then I got really into karaoke. I used to DJ karaoke actually for a while, and
wait, did you have a DJ name like a No, okay.
No, I think they called me DJ Katie, but that was just because they were like, "This is the DJ, and her name is Katie." Like,
Katie.
That was it.
Not very original. I wasn't. But okay.
Yeah, so I would DJ karaoke at like bars, like 9 to 1. You could find me here at this bar. I did that for a little while in SoCal, and then just doing karaoke has kind of always been something that I love to do. I do it with my friends all the time. Actually, I have a friend coming into town this weekend. We're going to go do karaoke. And I think, honestly, like, singing is probably the only thing I'm, like, not very modest about. Like, I know I'm a good singer. So when I went to Magic 30, this is kind of, I think, where the karaoke blew up a little bit, was at Magic 30. They had the karaoke room at the big party that they had that Wizards held. And I went up and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to... Oh, can I cuss? I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, you can cuss.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to swing Whitney Houston right now. Like, I'm
just
Whitney
Houston. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Of all the songs, Whitney Houston. All right, now you're just Katie. You're just showing off now. With Whitney Houston.
I mean, yeah, it's the only thing I'm really good at. So so the song starts. Somebody decided to turn off the lights. Everybody got out their phones. It was like a very magical moment. And then at every event, like I think we even did at Magic 30. I think we did a karaoke night. The second night or the first night or something, and we invited some people that were there at Magic 30 at offsite, like at a karaoke place. And we every time we go to an event, we're like, where are we doing karaoke? We got to go to karaoke. So definitely something I love doing, and I have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, karaoke. I'm a big fan of karaoke. I'm not a very good singer. But you get some beers in me, and I will. So do you have Whitney Houston? Is that like your go-to song? Like when you go to karaoke, you have to have like the one in the. Do you have like a particular go-to? Is it the Whitney Houston, or like what's your?
Yeah. So Whitney Houston is like. I usually that's like my showstopper. Like it's like if I'm only gonna do one song. Which at that night at Magic 30, the wait list was like 2 hours to sing a song. So, because everybody was there and they were all singing. So, I think I waited 2 hours and I was like, well, if I'm only going to sing one song, I'm going to sing this one. That's probably the one that, but generally, I mean, I like to sing, I'm actually, because I'm going to karaoke, I've been like preparing songs, which I know sounds silly, but, I was getting ready to like go out with some friends, so I'm like, I'm gonna learn a couple new songs that I'll know really well for going out to karaoke. So I learned Cherry Bomb by the Runaways. I'm learning. I learned Barracuda by heart. I don't know if that song is like really in my range and comfortable singing it. In front of a bunch of people. Yeah. But, like, I'll have, like, new songs that I like to incorporate. I think Ain't It Fun by Paramore is another one that I'll pull out. Okay. Like, if we're going to be there for a while, like, that's a song I always love to sing. And then, I don't know. I actually really like to sing, like grungy songs, too. I used to be in a band. I know you had asked me that a little bit ago. I was in a band with my husband after we got married. It was, like, a kind of garagey punk grungy situation. I don't really know what it was. We hadn't really found our sound. But I did a little screaming, like not like full like screamo kind of situation, but like kind of that like punk vibe where you're kind of yelling. And that was really fun.
Melodic screaming, is that?
Totally. Yeah, like at the drive-in kind of situation.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I love doing that. It's like it's a good muscle to exercise, and so sometimes I'll learn songs just because I get to scream a little bit. Yeah, no,
that's pretty funny. So two things. So my go-to song at karaoke is "Firework" by Katy Perry. That's usually my number one because and can I hit all those notes? Maybe. I don't know. Do I have a fun time singing it? You bet I do.
Yeah, and everybody sings along. That's one of those great.
I think that's what I think. Since everyone joins in, it doesn't matter how bad I sound because everyone it's just one of the songs where you hit that. You're fine. Everyone's like, yeah, it's really inspiring. So,
yeah.
But that's cool. Yeah, grunge. I mean, I'm all about that grunge, dirty rock. I played in a band in not high school, in college. I think it's funny. I got into music like way later in life, probably like freshman year of college. I had two friends who like played guitar, and then they were like jamming. They're like, "Gee, you should learn how to play bass." I was like, "All right, like I got nothing going on." So like we just started a band in our dorm room, and they were really into. We were very inspired by Thrice was kind of our number one inspiration, like Rise Against, those kind of.
Oh yeah, I love Rise Against.
Heavier and kind of like screaming, but not screamo, but not like you know what I mean. That kind of like we call it melodic screaming. I always joke we call it, we were technically a post-hardcore band. I think was the but it's fun. Playing music is one of those things where playing live, I don't think there's a better feeling in the world. Like when you're on stage and like you're just, regardless of how good you are or whatever it is, like when you're performing, there's something about, and this is probably kind of to your point about doing karaoke. It's like when you're performing. There's like not a better feeling in the world, just like being on there and just going for it. So I can understand like especially for a singer, like why karaoke would be so important to you because like you're definitely kind of capturing that essence. But yeah, it's fun. I don't get to play. I don't know. Are you in any bands currently, or I know like you said your husband's in a few. Do you play at all or anything, or what are you doing?
No, I truly don't have the time to be in a band. I would love to, but yeah, I just don't have the time. And I have like a young kid, so it's like going to band practice every week means I probably have to fork out money for a babysitter, which isn't the worst thing. But doing it every week, it ends up being a pretty big expense if you look at it over the month. So. Yeah, I think ultimately I would love to be in a band, but I'll probably wait until my kid's a little older. But I mean, going to karaoke every now and then is like enough. And like my husband's he has a solo project that's black metal. He's in a death metal band, and he's also in a Motorhead style rock band.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah.
So he does a lot, and so I get to go see him, and then I get to go take photos and like be that kind of person for him when he's doing that. So that's fun too.
That is super cool. I play in a little jam band with two of my best friends, and we get together every few months, and we play a bunch of covers, and we just do jam songs, and we drink, and it's most fun thing we do is we call it photo bombing or phone bombing, where we'll FaceTime one of our friends, and when they answer, we'll jump into a rendition of "Eye of the Tiger." It's very silly, but it's usually if whoever we call, if they answer, they enjoy it. But usually, you'd be surprised at how many people don't answer their FaceTime calls on a Friday night at like 7 o'clock. I don't understand why. But anyways, so in addition to music, obviously, you talked about photography a little bit, and I know we've kind of talked a lot of shop about photo because you talk about you feel pretty comfortable saying you're a pretty good singer. I begrudgingly like to think I'm a pretty good photographer, or at least I've been doing it a long time, and I know you've really kind of jumped into the photography world. So what kind of drew you to photography, and like what's kind of got you interested in that sort of hobby, as it were?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to get into photography since I was a young kid. My mom had cameras growing up, and that was what her dream was to be a photographer. And so there was always cameras around, and she was always taking photos of us. But like, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, we were not allowed to use her cameras. Whenever we asked, like, can I use it? How do I use it? She was always like, it's broken. And I was kind of like, okay, I guess that's fine. And then I got like a digital camera when I was like 18 or something, and I loved it. Yeah. And of course, by then everybody had, not very many people. It was right when the first iPhone came out. But people were starting to get like a lot of cameras in their phones, and it was kind of a thing that people didn't really use digital cameras anymore. And then I moved up to, after I had my son, I bought like a DSLR. I bought like a Canon Rebel because I was like, I want to like have something nice to like take really nice photos. I don't want to just rely on my phone all the time. Especially back then it was like the iPhone 10. So it's like the camera was good, but it wasn't like incredible as much as they wanted to tell you it was. And so I was like, I'm just going to get a DSLR, you know, have my own thing. But like, I really wanted to get into film, but I was just so petrified. And it's actually funny because I had a film Canon Rebel. I had everything I needed. I had film and everything too. And I was just so scared to use it because I was like, film is so permanent and it's like, I can't get rid of it. I can't try again. Like I have to just live with the decision and the shot that I took. And I was so scared of it.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of film, though, is the permanence and the it is scary though, depending if you're doing something important.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I kind of stayed away from it, and then when I moved up here to Washington, I made a friend who shoots film, and she was like, "You should just do it. Like just get a camera." Like I was like, "Well, I already have this one," and so I ended up buying a Pentax Spotmatic. That was like my first film camera that I bought. She gave me a couple rolls of film. I just started like learning how to use it. For the first few rolls were so overexposed. I didn't know how to do it. It was all manual. Yeah. And now I have 6 cameras, including a new digital camera, which I was inspired to buy because of you. Because I saw you at Magic 30 with a camera around your neck that when at first glance I thought it was a Leica, and I was like, oh, somebody's here with a Leica camera. I was freaking out. And then I wish I asked you, I was like, oh my God, do you have a Leica? And you're like, oh no, it's a Fujifilm. And I was like, oh my God, that's super cool still. Yeah. And then I messaged you like a couple weeks later and I was like, did you have a Fuji X100V? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, that's the one I'm going to get. I ended up getting a T. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like having photography to do like on a weekend and like go out to the city. I live in a beautiful place where there's lots of nature and beautiful buildings and stuff. Yep. So, and then also wanting to capture like the fun moments with my kid and like get all of that, really drove me to photography. And I just really like over the last year, I've gotten super into it. I finally bought a medium format camera, which I have right here.
Bronica, right? I was looking at stuff and I realized I didn't see that tweet. I was like, how did I miss that tweet? That's so cool.
Yeah. So I bought a big Bronica, which I love, and I've done 3 rolls of film out of it already, and I'm obsessed. Oh, wow. Like they came out so pretty, and so photography is just one of those things, and it happened suddenly, and I was quickly just like totally wrapped up in it.
Yeah, well, that's photography. I encourage everyone. Everyone has a phone. It's funny, the iPhone essentially killed like little pocket digital cameras. But anyone can be a photographer. You have your camera. If you have a phone, you probably have a camera. But it's fun. It's I enjoy photography obviously a great deal. Film is definitely the only problem obviously with film is it's expensive.
It is.
So like it can be a little cost prohibitive, but you talk about it being scary. Like I couldn't, so I shot weddings. I would never shoot a wedding with film because I'd be too paranoid about messing it up. But there's, one of my best friends, we talk about film photography a lot, and there's this aspect of shooting film where, once you capture the light hitting the celluloid and you have that negative, it's like a truly moment in time. There, digital, you can copy a digital image, add infinite amount of times, and it's you have multiple whatever, but that negative, only one of those negatives is only ever going to exist. So there's a certain, so with all its positives and flaws, it's kind of, I don't know, this might be like silly artist quote unquote ranting, but like there's a beauty in that idea of like that negative is the only negative of that image, that moment in time that's ever going to exist. So totally. Yeah, but and I was always a big fan of shooting like music, like bands. So I know I've seen some of your having obviously your husband probably performs a decent amount. So getting out to kind of do that, which is always fun. Getting in the pit, getting I don't know if you've ever if you ever get a chance to shoot like a stadium, or whatever, they give you your 3 songs, this kind of thing. They let you go up front for 3 songs, and they kick you off. But it's fun. So I'm always glad to see new photographers get excited. I don't know. I had Hobbs on 2 episodes ago, and he is another Magic person who he just got a new Sony something, and he's been super stoked to talk photography with me. So I kind of was joking, it's like we should start a little Magic photography career, what's a Discord, I don't know, but just like to talk shop and like exchange photos and stuff. It's super fun, but it's definitely
Magic the photographing.
Oh my gosh, there it is. All right, write that down. Magic the photographing. I will. He would be down. Hobbs is so cool. He's always just like, yeah, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Like, I think we talked for about an hour and a half. We talked about Magic for 10 minutes and everything else but Magic. But that's funny. Goodness. So, well, that's cool. I'm glad I inspired you to get a Fuji. Like, I'm a big Fuji guy. So, that's pretty sweet. Do you have an online portfolio or anything yet? Do you have like your photos up anywhere, or is that still?
I do.
Oh, do you?
I don't have like an official portfolio, but I do have an Instagram where I post a lot of photos that I've taken. That's specifically all my film photos, and that's just sweet. At Kill by Film.
Okay, Kill by Film. I'll definitely link that below. But yeah, check that out. Yeah.
I live in the Seattle area, so it's a lot of pictures of Seattle. A lot of pictures. Yeah. I'm trying to more and more go to more local shows and stuff and get photos of bands. So I've been posting some there. I did a little thing for Satanic Royalty Records that they had a big festival in Seattle. So I went and took photos of one of the nights of all the bands. That was really fun. And I did them all on film. So that was daunting.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Look at you.
I get them back up on my Fuji, so I usually have 2 cameras, and I have one on
sure.
film and then one on the digital that I'm like, if this all goes wrong, at least I have the digital ones.
Yeah, that's just smart. That's just, you got to do. Yeah, that makes sense.
It is funny though, because I multiple times I'll be like, I have one slung around my back and then I have one on the front, and people would be like, is that a digital camera? And I'm like, no, it's film. And they're like, I swear I saw a screen on it. And I was like, oh, do you mean this one? And I pull out the other one. They're like, oh, yeah, that was what I meant.
It's funny, too, how much of a conversation starter a film camera is. Like, it's like, are you shooting film? And you're like, yes, I am. And, people I remember I was at the Huntington Library like years ago with a Nikon F3 and walking around, and this guy came with, he was like, oh, it's it's really cool seeing you keeping shooting film, and like I can remember shooting film when I was younger and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it was a really so it's fun. Like shooting film is, because you have to put so much into every shot. Digital, you could crank out 300 photos in like 5 minutes, and you're just like, well, there's probably one
exposure and
right. Yeah, definitely.
Do you still have a Nikon F3?
Yep, it's
oh yeah.
Can I reach it?
That's like a camera that I want next right now, as a Nikon F3. There's a guy in Seattle that has a Nikon F2, and I'm just kind of like looking at it like, maybe.
Definitely, if you can get, I think the F3 is worth the bump and like whatever. Yeah. It's a F3 HP, which is like the high point. So I think I'm trying to remember. I think the viewfinder is like a little bigger.
Okay.
And here's a fun thing. I think if you ever see a Nikon F3 with a hot shoe, that was like a limited edition or kind of like a special edition for newspaper photographers, because most F3s don't have hot shoes, so it's kind of rare. So like if you're ever like browsing and you see an F3 but it has a hot shoe, I'm pretty sure that's like a hard to find version of that camera. Yeah. So just like I always keep an eye out when I'm looking at F3. It's like, and I'm trying to remember the it's like F3 like NP, like newspaper or something, but like if it has a hot shoe, that's a rare or hard to find version of that camera. So
it's good to know.
Yeah, so there you go, a little camera insight for everyone listening. Okay, let's I guess swing back. That was kind of just for us, because like talking photos is always cool. Okay, so in addition, it's obviously photographer, fantastic musician, Magic player. You're also really into Dungeons and Dragons, which is another kind of popular, I would say, big crossover for Magic players and Dungeons and Dragons. As someone who's just kind of recently got into a consistent play group, who's been really kind of getting into a little bit more, definitely want to talk a little D&D. So I know you're currently is it one group you're playing with? Okay, let me back up for a second. Are you dungeon mastering a game right now? Or are you a player in a game right now?
Both.
Both. Okay, so are you in multiple
Yeah.
sessions? Like, are there multiple play groups you have right now?
I
Wow,
have
okay.
4 groups going right now.
4 groups. Okay, wow.
2 of which I am the DM. The other 2 I'm a player, and one of those groups we're wrapping up the campaign, and I'm about to DM the next one for that group.
That's a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, Katie. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's start with the player side of things because there's a lot of Dungeon Master things I always find interesting. But so, okay, when did you start? So, what got you into Dungeons and Dragons? Because you must be really into it if you're running that many different groups right now.
So I have always wanted to get into Dungeons and Dragons. It's, I feel like in high school I was like, oh, this is like so interesting. I love like role playing games. So I was like, this would be really fun to do. And actually, I originally was looking into like doing LARPing. That was like something I was interested in.
Okay.
And then I found out 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years, maybe it was 4 years ago now, that a group of people that I knew in high school were starting a campaign of D&D, and they were looking for somebody else. And I was like, yeah, I'll totally join. Like, that sounds great. I'm super into it. So I like bought a player's handbook. I sat down, I built a character out, and it was super fun. I had so much to learn from the beginning. I really had no idea what I was doing. And I did that for about a year. And then I was like, actually, I want to DM a campaign. I feel like I kind of know enough rules now. I think I could do it, So I got a group of my friends together that had never played D&D before. We were all new. It was my first time DMing. I had one person in my group who had been playing Dungeons and Dragons since like the early 90s. So
wow.
he was very well versed in D&D. So it was nice to have like a kind of a crutch to lean on almost.
Yeah.
And they were super into it. So it was super fun. And I was like, I could do this. And so in the process of wrapping up that campaign, that was like a pre-made one that came with the starter kit, I was like, I want to write my own campaign. And I sat down and I was like, what inspires me? And it was King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard that inspired me. So I wrote a whole campaign. It's all references to King Gizzard. It follows the storyline of a King Gizzard album. It's got a lot of other stuff in there. It's not just that, but like it's insane. It's like, and
yeah.
I've been running that one for a year and a half now.
Wow.
And I'm about to start running it again with the other group, because I didn't want to run a pre-made one with the group of friends. I wanted to run one I already written, and instead of writing another one, I was like, well, I just run it with this different group of people. They haven't seen it yet, so.
Okay. I was going to ask, would you is reusing a campaign something you do or you consider? But obviously that's because that's a lot of work. I feel like to like do a full campaign and like, okay, well, I got to do a brand new one now. Like, here we go. Like, let's tap the old creativity wells,
I really wanted to be a writer growing up. That was like always something I thought I was going to do. I was going to write fiction, fantasy specifically. So D&D really like connected those dots for me of like, I get to write kind of the bones of a story, and I get to like build this world out. And then I get to like role play it with the people, and I get to kind of see what they're going to do. And I get to kind of like work the pieces of all this world together with them. It kind of like, it's like multiplayer storytelling, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I did really enjoy like, doing that. And it really tapped into that side of my brain that really wants to write fiction.
That's cool. I think you nailed the multiplayer storytelling aspect. I think is really the big draw for a lot of people when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. Do you find that your play groups go along with like your stories pretty well? Like, 'cause, a lot of times there's like, I feel like as you're playing, especially as a dungeon master, you kind of want to guide your people in one way, but sometimes they kind of do whatever. Do you find that your play groups are kind of, for the most part, get pushed along pretty well, or do you have groups that are like all over the place? Like, what do you think? What are your experiences with something like that, and like how do you like to deal with those situations?
So I really like to let my players do whatever they think they want to do. I don't try to get in the way. I give them the nudge they need to do what they want, to do what they're supposed to do, and then just kind of let things ride. I think when I first started DMing, we were doing, like I said, we were doing the, I forget what it's called, the starter campaign that comes in the starter set.
Minds of Flounder or something.
Yes.
You saved the unicorn. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
So we were doing that one, and there's like this part in the very beginning where they see like a cart that's been kind of like ransacked or burgled, and then they have to one of them can see the trail that leads to like a den where there's goblins, and they have to like save this guy who's in the cave. Yeah. Well, my players, they were so new, they had no idea, like, I'm gonna look around. They just were like, what do we see? And I was like, you see this cart and whatever. And this was probably partially my fault as well. Mm-hmm. But they were like, okay, we move on. Like, they're just like, we're going to keep going. I was like, okay. And so then I had to move on to the second part of that campaign.
Oh, okay.
And like completely bypass like the first part of it because they were like, they missed it. Like, they just were like, they didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to push them to do it.
Yeah.
In some of those situations, I've learned from that instance is like players have passive perception. They don't have to be looking around for something. They might just notice something looks weird. And so playing around with those just so that they don't lose track of what's supposed to happen is really helpful. And like remembering that stuff. Sometimes I like to give them like letters instead of somebody verbally telling them something. Oh, okay. So that they have something they can like reference that's like written down, not physically usually, because I play most of my D&D over Zoom, but
makes sense.
Something that they can reference, like that I've DM'd to them, like in Discord, or I've sent them a screenshot of something written down, so that they can be like, well, it actually says this, and then they're like, okay, now we know what we have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think ultimately, I want them to like do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Most of my groups are pretty good at kind of following the lead of the mission. Actually, sometimes too much now, because in my campaign that I wrote, they basically went straight to the final boss and fought the final boss. And now they're like, okay, well, we have all of our side quests we can do. So they're just doing side quests in the world. And there's another whole subplot of things happening that they haven't even gotten to yet. So it's like I was prepared, but I didn't think about the fact that they were just going to go straight to the end of the game. So I learned a lot. And I'm still learning a lot about how to run these. And I think in my next group, I'm going to probably not constantly lead them with the carrot. Like, they're going to get little bits and pieces, and then they'll kind of have a dead trail, have to go find somewhere else, and then they'll maybe get a new lead to move on to the next part. So, yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine part of the fun as a dungeon master is not ever really knowing. Like, you think you could prepare for all circumstances, but there'll be that one person who does something, you're like, oh, that did not even pass my mind as like something that could happen.
Totally.
Which is fun. I think that's part of the, like, because the dungeon, for me, it's like I've dabbled in dungeon mastering, because usually when I was playing, I would, like, my friends would play, but like I'd have to guide I'd have to lead the group, so because they're not going to learn how to DM. So now being on the player side, coming up with kind of wacky stuff that kind of force the DM to engage in a little different way. Like, I think on the DM side, it's probably more fun because it kind of gets you more involved versus you just like, so this is my plan. They're going to go here. This is going to happen. This is going to do this or whatever. So like, oh no, I didn't think about that. Like, let's see how would that play out? Like, kind of improvising on the fly.
Yeah.
And, as someone, shout out to my current DM, Luke. He's just been diving into like world building, and so we had a session, and we basically had to kind of take a month off because everyone's been kind of, what's the biggest issue people have playing in D&D? It's just scheduling, right? It's always scheduling. But he's like, well, I made a Discord for us. He's like, well, we could like continue the story through Discord. Like, I could just like write out story beats and like ask questions and roll dice that way. So like, you know, when you get a DM who's like really involved in their story, it makes such a big difference in the play experience. So I can imagine that your players are probably pretty lucky if you're like, I am, you know, being interested in writing, like fantasy writing in general, and just being like super into this. Like it's probably a pretty fun story. And I mean, just, you know, it's funny where inspiration can strike, right? King Gizzard, this is going to be, you know, like who would have ever thought that would have inspired a Dungeons and Dragons campaign? But like, that's you know what I mean? Like, why not? You know, that's wild. I'm sure it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, well, there was the whole thing with the OGL or whatever. That'd be cool. Like you have like here's the King Gizzard module for someone to use one day, you know, that's you know, that'd be pretty sweet. So,
well, I know the King Gizzard subreddit definitely wants it. I've been teasing it for a while now. I'm done with it realistically. Like here are the story beats. I know what everything has to do. It's just compiling it in a way that would make sense for somebody to run is a beat. So getting that all together and getting it kind of to how I want it, and you know, stuff like that is a lot of work. And so I'm slowly working towards that. I'm hoping to finish that this year so that I can publish it. Maybe not through D&D Beyond, but maybe just like out there in the internet for people to take and do with what they will.
I mean, there was the controversy of the OGL, but not only did they relent, it seems like they even took it back even more, so it's even like better for creators now.
It's even more open.
Yeah, so that's, you know, I mean, that's good for you, like if it is something you want to focus on. You know, you know, it's like one of those things, I don't know the full logistics of how like publishing those sort of things work, but one of my previous guests, his name was Kevin Cole, he created a tabletop game, kind of like a very streamlined not quite D&D, but a game you kind of play with friends like that. And he published it. Him and his wife, they published. They made it. They kickstarted a book, like a physical book. So it's like it'd be cool. You know, that's kind of one of those things. Well, it'd be cool, like if you're like, yeah, let's do this, and like to actually have like a kickstarted, you know, module published. You know, I think that's one of those things. Is like someone interested in creating stuff. Like that's kind of a cool thing to be like, oh yeah, I made this. You know, here's the thing I made for the world to enjoy.
Yeah. So.
Hopefully, you know, I look forward to hearing many people getting to experience your module there. So that's pretty sweet, very impressive, I must say. So on the player side, you know, different way to experience the game. So you said you have 4 sessions. You're DMing 3 of them and go ahead.
I have 2 characters right now that I'm currently playing. One of the characters is about to kind of retire because that campaign will be ending. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the 2 characters? What are their class and all that good stuff? What are they?
So I have a level 9 tiefling druid named Meliora, who is constantly battling with herself. She really wants to be like peaceful and quiet and bring like positivity to the world, but because she's a tiefling, she's kind of chaotic and accidentally destroys stuff, and she leans a little too heavy on fire magic, and so there's a lot of like she has like her own little war that's happening. So she can be a little crazy, but when she gets mad, but generally she's like trying so hard to like keep it together, you know?
Yeah.
And then my other character is a satyr cleric named Plim. And she is a unholy cleric. She's her kind of base motive in life is that she's going to help anybody in need, which is why she became a cleric. But she's also not able to discern who's good and who's bad usually. So her kind of backstory before we're running Tomb of Annihilation.
Okay.
So her kind of backstory is that she came to Cholt because she was running away because she was serving a vampire who got caught. And she was basically trying to help this vampire pass as like a not human. So she was like trying to like find a way to sate his like bloodlust and keep him like fully functional and not vampiric. But then he got murdered. So then now she's on the run basically. So she's kind of like, you know, a little all over the place. She's always trying to do good, but her distinction of like what good is and what bad is great, which is kind of fun. But generally right now, like she also is obsessed with pretending that she's a ghost. So she has like this cloak that it just increases her stealth, but she also can make a minor illusion of herself to look like a ghost. So she likes to trick people and like scare people. So she's constantly trying to scare like guards and like sneak her way through things, and scare people away. So
that's funny. I like that spooky ghost. So okay, this is my favorite question. When you play these characters, do you get full into like the role playing aspect? Like, do they have voices? Do you really like dive in? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm all about the voices when I play these things. You got to have the character idea and you need to have the voice. Like that's part of the fun, right? If you're already playing Dungeons and Dragons, like why not just go full in and do the voices? Can we hear the voices? Is that awkward? If it's awkward, it's, but
so Meliora's voice is really just my voice because she was my first character. I wasn't like feeling confident enough to like do a voice for her, so she's mostly just my voice. I just use a little bit more of like froofy language. But Plim is like a little higher pitched, and she laughs and giggles a lot when she doesn't mean to, because she doesn't know how to not be happy. So generally that's how she's talking most of the time.
That's funny. If I can imagine if I close my, I would have thought I was a different person. It's just amazing how just the slight pitch makes it. Well, that's funny. That's cool. I mean, I think that's part of the fun, right? Like creating these characters and getting involved. I love voices. I love doing voices for my characters too. So I do a poor rocket. I have a deep gnome wizard that I've been playing, who's basically like Rocket Raccoon is kind of the inspiration. Like he likes to steal stuff for he's friends with an orc warrior. They're pals. So like they're journeying together with our larger group, but like he'll like steal stuff for him if like the orc, if he wants it, and like he'll sneak it and stuff, and it's fun. It's super fun doing the wannabe Rocket voice and just like getting into character and really being, because typically I do like I started this play group and everyone was kind of choosing and there was like three holy paladin people. Like, okay, everyone's a paladin. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to try something a little different. So I'm going to be a kind of a sassy, deep gnome fire guy or something. So it's been fun. It's been a nice change of pace from my normal play style. So
yeah. And when I DM, fun. I do like all the voices and stuff for my characters, my NPCs. I have a lot of fun like doing all the voices and stuff, and I think it helps like immerse the players a little bit too. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Have you ever thought about streaming your sessions, like doing like Twitch D&D stream, or doing like a Twitch or I guess YouTube like D&D stream show kind of thing? Is that everything that's ever crossed your mind?
I wanted to do a one-shot, just like a single session episode of D&D just to kind of test the waters. I have something sort of written that I wanted to kind of flesh out. It's actually the story of Plim's backstory. So Plim is actually in the one-shot that I wrote. I loved her so much writing her character that I was like, I'm just going to play this character for a campaign. But yeah, so I have that kind of working out. I need to really like dedicate some time to really finish it so that it's kind of ready to be in a show. And then I also need to figure out the logistics of like getting everybody on video and like having good quality, and like how do I demonstrate maps to the audience as well as to the player and that kind of stuff. Like just wanting to like nail that kind of stuff down is daunting. So it is something that I want to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, I can imagine the logistical side of it being somewhat, especially just considering how big of a group you want to run with. Obviously, the more people you add, the crazier it gets. I'll have to show you this website maybe after. This might be something that would be beneficial to what you're trying to do in terms of at least like from a recording standpoint. It's pretty useful, but. Well, that's cool. Well, hopefully, I look forward to hopefully seeing that someday. I think that'd be very entertaining. I really hope that King Gizzard module kind of finds its way into the world, because we need more creative solutions like that out there. I think that's super super freaking cool. So
it's cool too, because at the end of the campaign, I'm gonna give all of the players their song that their like side quest was based off of. So I have like a little playlist for the campaign, and it's all King Gizzard songs.
Oh wow, yeah, that's awesome. Gosh, that's so cool. Yeah. I might steal that idea next time I host some sort of session of something. I don't know what album. I got to think about that. It's and it gives you like a great like just like general outline to start, starting point, right? And you can kind of like fill in. Yeah, you are a clever one, Miss Karlov. Let me tell you. So, Katie, this has been fantastic. I wanted to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I don't want to take up too much of your time, too much more of your time, I should say. So there's a few more things I kind of just wanted to wrap us up with. We kind of talked before, when I talk about, or when I have my guests on, I like to have them pick a charity of their choice that my show makes a donation to, just as a kind of a small way to kind of give back and to a good cause. And as you know, you kind of mentioned earlier that Birds of Paradise has supported this group, so we'll be making the show and tell show. We'll be making a donation to Trans Lifeline as a kind of joint in our names. Just again, I kind of haven't really emphasized, but like trans people are under heavy attack like every day these days. It's not even it's not even like, well, it's kind of hard. It's scary out there. So help protect trans kids, protect trans people. Like they are, trans rights are human rights. Like I can't even imagine the constant stress and fear that I'd be under. So this is like a simple, small way we can kind of try to help a service, provide necessary and, could be life-saving support for people in need. So we'll be doing that. And additionally, what I like to do, I talk a lot about community and building community and being a part of community. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up my community board through the magic of video editing. So I'm going to listen it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically subscribe to your Twitch stream. So the show and tell show will be a consistent Twitch subscriber to you just going forward, just as a small way to kind of support support you as you do your streams, as you do whatever other content you're looking to do, but that way I can kind of keep helping you, basically supporting you after the end of the show, and just hopefully giving you a little more flexibility and being able to go out and look into maybe hosting a D&D show or doing more streams or what have you. So it's just a small way for me to kind of keep supporting you after having you on, and just as a small sort of thank you, and hopefully a kind of a way just to show that we believe what you're doing, and I think you're a very good example of what a good community member in the Magic community looks like. So I'll be hopping on that and locking in those subscriptions. So just a kind of a small gesture, and the show and tell show has your back, and keep talking photography with me and stuff, and good times. So
thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for coming on. I will link all of your kind of good social media stuff at the end of the show, Twitter, or your awesome Instagram, your film Instagram. I'm looking forward to looking that up after the show ends myself. If you're listening and you've been enjoying the episodes I've been putting out, this is just a passion project, but feel free to subscribe. I hit my glorious 50 subscriber goal on my birthday, which was kind of cool, a few days ago. So we passed 50 subscribers. So we're looking to, maybe 100 by the end of the year. Who knows? That's always kind of a fun thing to do. You can the notification bell seems excessive. You don't have to hit the bell, but yeah, if you're just subscribed, you can find me on Twitter, find Katie on Twitter. That's probably the best way to see what's going on in our lives. And again, so Katie, thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to seeing you on a stream or at a convention or in the ether, as it were. So thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, I will be at Command Fest Bellevue. So if you're coming, I'll be there.
Oh yeah, Command Fest Bellevue. There you go. So check her out, and we'll catch you.
I'm sorry, it's Seattle this year. Command Fest Seattle.
Oh, even better. Yeah, there you go. Probably even closer for you. Heck yeah, Seattle. Seattle's a great city. If you've ever been to Seattle, it's a great excuse to get out there.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much.